हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। आज हम अपने यूपीपीएससी जीडीसी असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर इंग्लिश मेंस क्वेश्चन सीरीज़ के 5th सीरीज़ में हैं। अगर आपने मेरी प्रीवियस सीरीज़ की क्वेश्चंस नहीं किए हैं तो प्लीज़ मेरे प्लेलिस्ट पे है, जाके आप देख सकते हो और सारे क्वेश्चंस को खुद से प्रैक्टिस करो। एंड आज हम बात करेंगे यूनिट 2 के एल्फ्रेड लॉर्ड टेनिसन, रॉबर्ट ब्राउनिंग, मैथ्यू आर्नल्ड, टी.एस. एलियट एंड डब्ल्यू.बी. गेट्स। प्लीज़ अगर आपको मेरे क्वेश्चन सीरीज़ अच्छे लग रहे हैं तो मेरे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना एंड प्लीज़ लाइक करना एंड शेयर करना मेरे वीडियोस को। तो शुरू करते हैं अपने पहले क्वेश्चन के साथ। क्वेश्चन नंबर फर्स्ट, टेनिसन, यूलिसिस एंड ब्राउनिंग्स प्रॉस्पाइस both present courage in the face of death and adversity. Compare the treatment of courage, struggle and heroic spirit in the two poems. Alfred Lord Tennyson's Ulysses, published in 1842 in Poems. It is a dramatic monologue spoken by the aged Ulysses, and the central idea to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Ulysses represents adventure, courage, action, and the desire for experience. While Robert Browning Prospice, published in 1864, Prospice means look forward in Latin. Browning presents death not as something to fear, as a challenge to be confronted courageously, and the comparison are Ulysses fights against the limitations of old age and inactivity, while Browning's speaker confronts death itself. And the key words are heroism, courage, struggle, adventure, mortality, and defense. Question number second. Discuss the defense of Lucknow as a poem of patriotism and heroism. How does Tennyson's treatment of heroism compare with Browning's treatment of heroic struggle in The Last Ride Together? We all know the defense of Lucknow is by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it is connected with the Indian Rebellion of 1857 and celebrates British courage and resistance. And the poem presents collective heroism and patriotism. Browning's The Last Ride Together is a dramatic monologue, and the speaker has been rejected in love but asks for one final ride with his beloved. His personal disappointment becomes an opportunity for spiritual and emotional acceptance, and Tennyson's heroism is largely public and national. Browning's heroism is personal and psychological, and the key words are patriotism, sacrifice, courage, rejection, acceptance, and heroic struggle. Question number third. Compare the Lotus-Eaters and Arnold's The Scholar-Gipsy as poems of escape from the pleasure and anxiety of ordinary life. Tennyson's The Lotus-Eaters is based on Homer's Odyssey, and Lotus-Eaters experiences a world of dream, idealness, pleasure and forgetfulness. The sailor wants to escape from the responsibilities of ordinary life. On the other hand, Arnold's The Scholar-Gipsy is based on a story from Joseph Glanvill's The Vanity of Dogmatizing. The Scholar-Gipsy leaves Oxford and seeks a different form of knowledge. Arnold contrasts the modern age of doubt, anxiety and sick hurry with the Scholar-Gipsy's purposeful existence. Both poems present escape from ordinary life, but their escapes differ. Tennyson escaped through sensual pleasure and forgetfulness, while Arnold escaped through idealism, simplicity and freedom from modern anxiety. And the keywords are escape, weariness, modern, anxiety, idealism and dream, withdrawal. Remember the keywords. Question number 4. Ulysses represents the spirit of the Victorian age. Discuss the statement with reference to Tennyson's treatment of action, adventure and the desire for experience. Ulysses reflects the Victorian fascination with action, progress, exploration and self-development. Ulysses refuses to accept a passive old age. Famous idea, I am a part of all that I have met. His past experiences have shaped his identity. He believes that life is incomplete without continuous experience. The poem reflects the Victorian values of energy, progress and perseverance. But Ulysses is also problematic because his desire for adventure conflicts with his responsibility as a king and husband. The ending gives the poem its strongest message of heroic perseverance, and the keywords are progress, adventure, action, experience, perseverance, and Victorian spirit. Question number 5. Discuss My Last Duchess as a dramatic monologue. How does Browning's technique of characterization differ from Tennyson's presentation of character in Ulysses? My Last Duchess was published in 1842 by Robert Browning, and it is one of Browning's most famous dramatic monologues, and the speaker is the Duke of Ferrara. The Duke is talking to an envoy who has come to negotiate his next marriage. कितना बेशरम था. And the Duchess is dead, but the Duke indirectly reveals how he treated her. His speech exposes his jealousy, pride, possessiveness, and authoritarian personality. The famous painting of the Duchess becomes a symbol of the Duke's desire to control and possess her. Browning uses irony and indirect characterization. Ulysses also uses dramatic monologue, but Ulysses is presented more sympathetically as a heroic seeker. And the keywords are dramatic monologue, irony, jealousy, power, possessiveness, and characterization. Next question. Compare the treatment of love and relationships in Browning's The Last Ride Together and Yeats' A Prayer for My Daughter. Browning's The Last Ride Together deals with romantic rejection and emotional acceptance. The speaker accepts the failure of his love but values the final moment with his beloved. And the poems transforms failure into a meaningful experiences. While Yeats' A Prayer for My Daughter was written after the birth of his daughter Anne and published in 1921. It is a father's prayer for his daughter's future, and Yeats wishes for her to possess beauty, kindness, courtesy, stability, and wisdom. He warns against excessive physical beauty because it may lead to vanity and social conflict. And the comparison between these poems, Browning focuses on the individual's response to failed love, while Yeats focuses on parental love and hopes for the future. And the keywords are love, relationship, acceptance, beauty, wisdom, and family. Next question. Dover Beach is a poem of Victorian spiritual crisis. Discuss how does Arnold's treatment of loss of faith anticipate the spiritual crisis present in Eliot's The Waste Land. Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach was published in 1867, and it is one of the major poems of Victorian spiritual crisis. And the famous metaphor is sea of faith. And Arnold presents the retreat of faith and the resulting sense of uncertainty. And the poem ends with the idea that the world lacks certainty, joy, and peace. Eliot's The Waste Land was published in 1922. It presents a much more fragmented and complex modern spiritual crisis. Arnold represents the loss of religious faith, while Eliot expands the crisis into cultural, moral, and spiritual fragmentation. And the keywords are loss of faith, spiritual crisis, uncertainty, fragmentation, and modernity. Next question. Compare Matthew Arnold's Dover Beach and T.S. Eliot's The Waste Land as poems depicting the spiritual and cultural crisis of their respective ages. Remember this distinction. Arnold represents Victorian crisis, while Eliot represents modernist crisis. Dover Beach relatively unified lyrical voice, and the Wasteland represents multiple voices and fragmented perspectives. Arnold uses the sea of faith as a central metaphor, while Eliot uses the image of a wasteland to represent spiritual and cultural sterility. Arnold still reaches for consolation in human love. Eliot offers a much more difficult and fragmented search for spiritual renewal. And the keywords are faith, culture, fragmentation, sterility, modern civilization, spiritual renewal. Next question. Discuss the wasteland as a modernist poem. How do fragmentation, myth, allusion and multiple voices reflect the condition of modern civilization? We all know Wasteland published in 1922 and it has 5 sections. The Burial of the Dead, A Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, Death by Water and What the Thunder Said. And the major features of modernism are fragmentation, multiple voices, myth, allusion, intertextuality, juxtaposition and cultural dislocation. Eliot uses the mythical method to connect the modern world with ancient traditions. And the major sources and allusions under this poem are the Bible, Dante, Shakespeare, Buddhism, Hindu Upanishads and classical mythology. And the ending, Shanti Shanti Shanti, suggests a movement toward peace, although the resolution remains complex. And the keywords are modernism, fragmentation, myth, allusion, sterility and cultural collapse. Next question. Compare Eliot's The Wasteland and Yeats' The Second Coming as representations of the breakdown of modern civilization. Wasteland बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पोम है कि ये हर सिलेबस में प्रिस्क्राइब रहता है, इसलिए मैंने ये हर पोम से इसको कनेक्ट करके इससे क्वेश्चंस दिए हैं ताकि आप लोगों को फ्रेम करने में कोई प्रॉब्लम ना हो, आप लोगों को हर क्वेश्चंस दिमाग में रहे. सो Eliot's The Wasteland, published in 1922, and Yeats' The Second Coming, written in 1919 but published in 1922. Both portray a world experiencing collapse and disorder. Eliot uses the metaphor of a wasteland, while Yeats uses the image of the gyre and the approaching second coming. Eliot's poem is concerned with spiritual and cultural sterility, while Yeats focuses strongly on historical violence, political disorder and the collapse of civilization. Both poems uses myth and religious imagery. Yeats ends with a terrifying image of the rough beast moving toward Bethlehem. And the keywords are crisis, civilization, fragmentation, violence, myth and apocalypse. Next question. The Second Coming and The Wasteland are poems of crisis, but neither is completely without hope. Discuss with reference to both poems. Both poems begin with a condition of disorder and spiritual crisis. And The Second Coming contains terrifying images. Things fall apart, the widening gyre, the rough beast. Yet, Second Coming itself suggests the possibility of a new historical spiritual order. And The Wasteland is dominated by death, sterility and fragmentation. But its final section introduces possibilities of rain, thunder and spiritual renewal. The ending Shanti provides a tentative movement toward peace. Therefore, neither poem is simply hopeless. Both poets diagnose collapse but simultaneously imagine the possibility, however uncertain, of renewal. Next question. Compare Tennyson's Ulysses and Yeats' sailing to Byzantium in their treatment of old age, mortality and the desire to transcend physical limitations. Tennyson's Ulysses, an old man who refuses to stop living actively. And Yeats' sailing to Byzantium, an old man feels alienated from a world dominated by youth and physical vitality. Ulysses seeks more experience through action and adventure, while Yeats' speaker seeks to transcend the physical world through art and spiritual transformation. And Ulysses accepts mortality but continues to act, while Yeats wants to skip the limitations of aging and the mortal body. So, Ulysses represents action and Yeats represents art and transcendence. And the keywords are old age, mortality, youth, transcendence, experience and art. Next question. Discuss Sailing to Byzantium as a poem of art and immortality. How does Yeats' vision of artistic permanence differ from Browning's attitude towards death in Prospice? Sailing to Byzantium, published in 1928 in the Tower. Byzantium represents an ideal world of art, spirituality and permanence. The natural world is associated with youth, sexuality, reproduction and decay. The speaker wants to skip the limitations of the mortal body. He asks the sages of Byzantium to transform him into something permanent through art. The golden bird represents artistic immortality, and Yeats' immortality is achieved through artistic permanence, not biological life. While Browning's Prospice represents a different response. The speaker courageously faces death and hopes for reunion beyond death. And the keywords are art, immortality, Byzantium, old age, permanence and transcendentals. Question number 14th. Compare the concept of skep in Tennyson's The Lotus-Eaters, Arnold's The Scholar-Gipsy and Yeats' Sailing to Byzantium. What different forms of skep do the poets imagine? This is very important comparison question. And 3 different forms of skeps are: Tennyson, The Lotus-Eaters, skep through pleasure, sleep, dream and forgetfulness. And Arnold, The Scholar-Gipsy, skep from modern anxiety through idealism, simplicity and withdrawal from modern society. And Yeats' Sailing to Byzantium, skep from physical aging and mortality through art and spiritual transcendence. So remember, Lotus-Eaters represent sensual skep, Scholar-Gipsy represent idealistic skep, and Sailing to Byzantium represent artistic and spiritual skep. And the 3 comparisons are very useful for names. So remember this. And the last question of this session are: trace the changing poetic response to the problems of faith, civilization, mortality and modernity from the Victorian age to modernism with reference to Tennyson's Browning, Arnold, Eliot and Yeats. And this can become your most important concluding question. Tennyson's main concerns: faith, progress, action and mortality. And the representatives work Ulysses and Lotus-Eaters. Victorian confidence mixed with anxiety. And Browning's main concerns: individual psychology, love, death and courage. And the representative works are My Last Duchess, The Last Ride Together and Prospice. Focus shifts toward individual consciousness and psychological complexity. In Matthew Arnold, main concerns: loss of faith, modern anxiety and cultural crisis. And the representative work Dover Beach and The Scholar-Gipsy. Victorian confidence becomes uncertainty and spiritual doubt. In T.S. Eliot's main concerns: fragmentation, spiritual sterility and cultural collapse. And the representative works are The Wasteland. Modernism presents a fragmented civilization. And last, W.B. Yeats' main concerns are history, violence, civilization, aging, art and spiritual transformation. And the representative works are The Second Coming, Sailing to Byzantium, A Prayer for My Daughter. And the crisis becomes historical, political, spiritual and existential. So, in last, remember, Tennyson represents action and progress in his poems. Browning represents individual and psychology. Arnold represents faith and anxiety. Eliot represents fragmentation and sterility. And Yeats represents history, crisis and ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन. सो आज के लिए बस इतना ही. ये 15 क्वेश्चन आप प्लीज़ खुद से प्रैक्टिस कर लेना, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. और अगर आपने मेरी प्रीवियस सीरीज़ नहीं देखी है तो उसके क्वेश्चंस भी कर लेना खुद से. उसमें किस यूनिट 10 में मैंने इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चंस को डिस्कस करके उसमें कुछ एक्सप्लेनेशन ऐड भी किए हैं वीडियो में, जिससे आपको हेल्प मिले. सो आज के लिए बस इतना ही. टेक केयर एंड बेस्ट ऑफ लक फॉर योर एग्ज़ाम। और मैं ये हमेशा हर वीडियो में बोलूँगी क्योंकि आपके लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि मेंस अपने आप में काफ़ी डिफ़िकल्ट होता है। सो कीप स्टडिंग एंड प्लीज़ लाइक एंड सब्सक्राइब माई चैनल इफ़ यू लाइक माई वीडियोज़। Thanks for watching.